OpenAI. So, as you guys already have probably seen, OpenAI released their new video generation platform called Sora. So, this is text to video. So, I'm sure people have some experience with text to image generators already. So, OpenAI is the inventor of DALL-E, which I think all of us have used here already and are continuing to use it. But they just recently released Sora, which is text to video. So literally, you type a paragraph of what you want in terms of like a descriptor of a scene or just anything, and then it'll generate a video out of it. So for the sake of time, I won't go through I won't play the video live for y'all. And I've told you guys to if you have time before this show to go watch it. So you guys have already seen kind of the video demos of Sora, and I will try to grab kind of a clip of it and kind of superimpose it on this show for our audience members in post. But yeah, just based on what you guys saw. So I think I've seen ones that were really impressive, right? So there was one where this woman was walking the streets of Tokyo at night, and it looks, almost perfectly realistic. It's like 95% of the way there, I would say. And then there are some that are more hit or miss. So there was one I remember that was like the ones that are more fictional, I guess, because there was one that was like a coffee cup and there's two pirate ships, miniature pirate ships fighting each other in the coffee cup. So I thought that one was interesting, but that one is maybe a little bit less realistic because it's like, you can clearly tell that it's AI. But there's also ones that were like, there was one for like Chinese New Year where people were like, using the tiger costumes and stuff or dragon costumes. And then that one was also, in my opinion, pretty realistic. But yeah, anyways, I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on text to video. So number one, is this something that you can see yourself using? And if so, would you pay for it? And if you, regardless of whether you would pay for it, do you think other people would pay for it? And what kind of use cases do you see coming out of this, if any?
I guess I'll go first. I had the chance to see like a few of the Sora AI like I guess test projects, the test subjects, and some of them are pretty realistic and some of them are a little iffy. Like I remember seeing a Canadian red like looking one, and then it was kind of like iffy. You could tell it looked like a really good graphic Final Fantasy game. So like there is a bit of work that needs to be done. There was like a view of like downtown Tokyo at night, not the girl one, but like just in general, or like a Chinese like market that looked hella realistic. And to answer your question too, in terms of if people will use it, I think yeah, I honestly think they will. So in my specific situation, and I guess for us too, Sora AI could be a really good utilization method if you want to do B-rolls for like YouTube videos. Maybe movie producers want to use B-rolls for this too. They could do this method. I think there's currently a subscription called Storyblocks that people actually pay for. So frankly speaking, I do think people would actually pay for a subscription to use these videos and whatnot. I could see that being a thing in the future. But if I were to pay for it right now, I don't necessarily think I would, because subscriptions are no for now. Like, by the way, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Like in the case that I do get more successful in YouTube, or we do, then yeah, maybe we would double up the ante on these type of programs, get some B-roll clips in. Like that would be like a good thing. But for now, maybe I wouldn't. But I could see people using the subscription, like I don't know, Johnny Harris, for example. Like he uses a lot of B-rolls from Storyblocks. Why not from this too? So yeah.
Yeah, you mean you're against paid subscriptions, right? So just a reminder, subscribing to this channel is free, so it's different, right? So that's
That's
what you
right.
meant. Yeah, okay. Great. Yeah. Before I toss it to Tristan, I just got to say, like, I kind of agree with what you said, do we really need another subscription? But I really do see that this being like super popular. And if I was since you brought up Storyblocks, if I was the CEO of Storyblocks, I'd be sweating bullets right now. Like, this is entirely gonna replace Storyblocks, in my opinion, right? Because Storyblocks is also a paid subscription service. And like, what's the point in paying for Storyblocks if I can just generate whatever I want? And I don't have to go search for a stock footage video that already exists. I can literally just generate it, right? So I can definitely see it being pretty popular, but I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. Let me pass it to Tristan first.
Yeah, so it's definitely very impressive what they managed to create. I think that some of the scenes did feel a little uncanny valley in the sense of you could tell that they weren't real, but you couldn't really put a finger on what was wrong with the video. But I think the fact that they are so realistic is, both really impressive and, potentially concerning, from the sense of like you could definitely do some fake stuff with that could scam people, or something to that effect, which is not ideal. So it's going to be a lot harder to tell what's real and what's not real, right? Like, I mean, theoretically, as this advances, this plus a deep fake, you could basically put anyone anywhere saying anything, and unless you can visually see them IRL, how are you going to know that this is really them? Because the deep fake voices too are getting really close. So it's definitely advancing quickly, and it was definitely pretty impressive what they've managed to do so far. From a Storyblocks perspective, I think that there will be some value in real B-roll, but I think that you're right. I think it's definitely going to diminish because, why am I, unless I want something pretty generic or very specific, I'd probably just have the AI make it, like, and the AI seems to be capable of making surprisingly detailed scenes. So if you're like, I'm talking about geography in Europe and I want my B-roll to be me picking up the Eiffel Tower, I'm pretty sure it could make you that, which, you're not going to find B-roll of that very easily comparatively. So it's definitely going to be a big shaker on that front too.
Yeah, and just to go back to like generic versus specific, I think this is why, again, I would be very worried about this if I was the CEO of Storyblocks, because I think AI has an advantage over something like a Storyblocks for both things that are very generic and very specific. And I'll explain what I mean, right? So, very generic stuff, it's like, if you can get it anywhere, the AI is already 95% of the way there for stuff that's very detailed, very specific. If you ask it to generate something generic, it'll probably get 100% or very close to 100% realism, right? So that replaces the very generic, like the need for very generic stock footage. And then for very specific things, yeah, you're like, AI is going to obviously also have an advantage there, because you're not going to be able to find a very specific circumstance in stock footage, right? Like, they just won't have it. And like, an AI can generate anything. So it's going to have an advantage on both extremes. Now, maybe like the middle is where the AI would have like, some competition, where if it's 95% of the way there, maybe that's not good enough, right? Maybe you want just real footage with real live actors. That's 100% realistic. So, crossing that last like 5% chasm is kind of the challenge, but I think it's very impressive, right? And maybe we'll talk around this a little bit more in detail later. But Nvidia just smashed their earnings when they reported their earnings earlier this week, right? So, I mean, the thing with things like Sora, it reminds me of how like people are calling for the demise of Nvidia, how it's a bubble, blah blah blah. But it's like, the fact is, the only reason why Sora is not available to the general public yet is because if they release it to the public, it would be so popular that it would crash OpenAI system and they wouldn't be able to accommodate that many customers, right? And the bottleneck to that is because they can't get enough GPUs from Nvidia. So people that are saying that Nvidia is going to crash, in the short term at least, I just don't see that happening because, again, $20 a month, let's say, or it doesn't even have to be 20, it could be $50 a month. Even at $50 a month, maybe you or I won't pay for it because we're not, we don't have a specific need for it. But I think a lot of people will be willing to pay for it, such that if they released it for $50 a month, the demand would far outstrip supply, and they wouldn't be able to keep up with the demand. So, I think that the AI boom, whether you call it a bubble or whether you think it's real, I don't think it's over at the very least, right? And I don't think, Tristan, you got to this question, but let me toss the original question back to you, which is, would you pay for Sora? Yes or no? And do you see other people paying for it if you don't want to pay for it?
I definitely think other people would pay for it. I probably wouldn't because I don't have sufficient use case for it currently. Like I don't need to generate footage that frequently. It would be just something cool to show off stuff. So I don't think I would pay for the privilege to do that, but I could see a lot of people paying for the privilege to do that.
Right. And in terms of use cases for it, besides stock footage, do you think there's any other kind of use cases for it that would be interesting? Like, some people have suggested that this could help make like indie movies, right? So there was one video actually in the demo where it was like an astronaut guy in like a science fiction type of scene where he was in like a snowy kind of deserty area with a spaceship. So I think that one was, the prompt that generated it was very like sci-fi based. So something like that, right? Like imagine if you had something like that before a whole movie, or not even a movie, but just a short film or something like that. And you can have potentially the sell is you would have a full Pixar studio on your MacBook Air. Like that's kind of like the dream, right? So do you see something like that being potentially a thing in the future, or what do you think?
I mean, to be frank, like it's pretty realistic. So I'll take like if you guys are familiar, Ali Abdal. I don't remember when this video came out, but it was relatively recent. I was trying to search it up, I couldn't find it. He made like a animated short like YouTube video of something to do with productivity, but I don't really remember what it was. And it was 100% animated. So if you can imagine that, like being the initial steps of Sora AI being utilized, that would be really cool. I could see that happening. But for like future steps, it's hard to say. Like no one's really sure. So I guess we'll wait and see, or we will wait and see.
Yeah, Tristan, thoughts?
I think that there will be a lot more people who do stuff like that because I think a lot of people have good ideas, but they don't know how to approach the idea. And the fact that it's so simple, you just write a bunch of stuff, allows you to have an opportunity where people who have good ideas but don't have an easy way to follow through and create their good idea, well, now they have an opportunity to create and follow through with their good idea through the help of having the AI create it. And another thing with like the B-roll and stuff, like I can see this being something where if you're someone who is maybe turned off of like doing YouTube videos or something because of like the effort to come up with B-roll and come up with footage and stuff, I could very easily see this becoming a way that you get over that because of the fact that instead of having to go on Storybooks and search for your specific clip, you just ask the AI it. They give you an example. You go, I want a little bit different. You go it again, gives you another example, and then you just. I could see like channels that do like video essays in particular. I think will have a lot of use for that. And I think there'll be a lot more people who follow that realm as well. So it's all gonna balloon into more content.
Yeah. So in other words, you don't think that this is all a bubble, or what do you think of people who argue that the AI boom is just all hype? Do you think that part of that is true, or all of that is true, or none of it's true?
Well, like it depends if someone else like steps up, because I think Nvidia is like the only creator of the chip, if I'm not mistaken. So if someone else, what was it? I don't know where I heard this, maybe from like Morning Brew. Like if, like for example, Sam Altman were to like step up and then create some sort of chip, maybe, but like with no competitor and Nvidia in the lead, like they're gonna skyrocket. But if a competitor comes through, then I could see the stock maybe dropping. But yeah.
Tristan, thoughts?
I think Nvidia is. I think Dom's right in the sense that Nvidia is running off the back of the fact that they have by far the best AI capabilities currently. But and I'm sorry. Also, an additional fact. They basically are running a money printer with their chips in general. Like every chip they make will always sell because they just keep bumping up the prices. They can keep this gravy train going forever, pretty much, because there's not a ton of competition in the space, because there's only 2 other potential companies that can really, maybe 3, 4. Actually, now that I think about it, there's really only AMD, Intel, Qualcomm, and Apple, who have any real chance of creating any sorts of chips that have any sorts of comparability to what Nvidia can already do. And the problem is that everyone's behind, and Nvidia is by far leading, and so they're going to run with the fact that they're leading. So their question is whether or not Nvidia's lead is going to be maintained, or are they going to be caught up by other companies, and also if they are able to keep up with the rate that they are growing. Because I think that the big thesis, at least from my perspective, is that them being overvalued is that I don't see them keeping up with the amount of chips that are required and requested sufficiently that they can maintain the level, at least of the stock price. Like I think that it's gonna have to come down a certain some amount in order to be more aligned with reality. But I think they're gonna be. I don't think there's a scenario where Nvidia is not the leading company in the space.
Yeah. So you think the stock might pull back a bit, but it won't like crash 80% or
No, it'll pull back to like $300 at the cheapest, I think. And that would be a pretty substantial move downward, but that would be like government regulation coming in about AI stuff that results in like slowdown of, like, there'd have to be something major. It wouldn't be just, Intel or AMD is now competitive. That wouldn't be enough. They wouldn't be. They don't have sufficient capacity to play in the sphere. Or you know what? Singapore getting not Singapore. The Taiwan. Taiwan having any issues from other countries would be a problem.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think if that happened, it would be a issue not just for Nvidia, but for like everyone.
Intel would be the most isolated because they're the only one that own their own fabs in countries that aren't Taiwan.
I'm gonna like redeem all my Intel shares as certificates and like put them in my doomsday bunker.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually, talking about competition though, I do want to shift gears a bit because we've discussed in length about the competition that Nvidia faces, but there's also another aspect of this, which is Microsoft and OpenAI, right? Because Microsoft owns 50% of OpenAI, and it's OpenAI does seem to be the leader in terms of actually producing products that uses the Nvidia chips. So Nvidia is kind of like the shovels, right? Like if we're using a gold mining reference, it's like the picks and shovels is Nvidia, but the actual gold is what OpenAI is producing, right? So if there's no one that can sell better shovels than Nvidia, maybe the way to compete in the AI space is to compete against OpenAI. And for that, maybe the lead that OpenAI has against other companies isn't as great as Nvidia's lead against other chip makers. But I'll kind of let you guys be the judge of that. Let's look at some statistics, right? So Google recently just released their statistics for their Gemini 1.5 Pro. This is, I don't think it's released to everyone yet, but it's kind of their latest platform that competes with ChatGPT. It's like their large language model. And this used to be called Bard, by the way. So they changed the name to Gemini. So if you're like, I've never heard of this, you probably have. It was called Bard before. They changed it to Gemini. But Gemini 1.5 Pro is supposed to be able to take up to 1 million tokens at once. And if you guys don't know what tokens are in this sense, it's a unit of measurement for large language models. So a token can be thought of as, a word that you put in to, I'm not sure if that's exactly how it works out, but let's say, it's a word that you can put into the ChatGPT model, and then it'll, figure out what those words mean and then give you a response. So right now, ChatGPT 4 with turbo mode on can do 128,000 tokens at once. So that's about the length of a book, right? So you can put a whole book in it and it'll crank it and analyze it and give you an output or multiple outputs, and you can ask it questions. But Gemini 1.5 Pro is supposed to do up to 1 million at once. So it's like a magnitude shift in terms of the amount of input that it can receive. So, and we'll have to try it out once it really comes out to the public to see, whether it is better than ChatGPT. But from what Google showed off, it is kind of promising. All right, so I'm wondering what you guys think about this news. And I guess one question that I have for you guys is, have you tried? I know you guys haven't tried Gemini 1.5 Pro, but have you tried Gemini 1.0? And what's your experience? Because I know you guys have probably also tried ChatGPT 3.5. So just from Gemini 1.0 versus ChatGPT 3.5, do you notice a difference, or what's your kind of comparison between the two?
It's definitely better at writing code. The first ChatGPT was pretty good at code, and then Bing at launch sucked. It refused to write code, and now Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, which I believe is 4, right? It is it's quite good. It's obviously not perfect, but it is miles better than the previous ones, particularly Bing. Bing was just.
All right, so you're saying that ChatGPT is better at writing code than Gemini, or the other way?
Sorry, I was talking about the progression basically of ChatGPT.
Oh,
have not necessarily about Gemini.
Have you used Gemini 1.0 or not?
I haven't really used it very much. Not enough to give a real in-depth opinion of it.
Mm-hmm.
I've mostly used Copilot, which is, I believe, ChatGPT 4, right?
Yeah.
On the back end.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been definitely pretty strong.
Right. Dom, what do you think?
I had time to test it. So like I've used ChatGPT before, and it's like very simple, like look, UX, UI, whatever you want to call it, and it gets the job done. You get results. I just tried Gemini right now. What I instantaneously noticed is it's slightly slower, but it also seems a little more organized, and the UX, UI, in my opinion, is better. Like I just typed in, plan me a trip to Las Vegas. Here it says day 1, followed up with a picture, and then like in bullet form, like what I should do on the first day, versus if it was just ChatGPT, it would just say, do this on the first day, no images or anything, and then second, third, fourth, fifth. So yeah, I guess both have pros and cons, but I think speed needs to increase on Gemini, and for ChatGPT, maybe more pictures, from what I can see so far.
Yeah, so judging from what you can see, do you think that Google is able to compete with OpenAI, like just on this one product alone? Let's just say Gemini versus ChatGPT, right? Like, do you see Google as being somewhat in the realm of competitive, or no? Are you a ChatGPT loyalist?
No, I mean, I totally think they could be a rival. Like, for example, this is like related but not related. I never thought I would have a Google Pixel or be part of the Pixel line, but here I am. I have a Google Pixel 7. I bought it recently. So I do like somewhat biasly believe in Google. They could be a competitor in the market. This is kind of like an early model, like I can tell and see. Maybe after like a few like modifications and updates, it'll be better. But I think maybe I'll use ChatGPT for now. I'll say that.
It also doesn't seem to be able to do images, or at least it didn't like me asking for images. I asked for a few, whereas ChatGPT is very willing and capable of making you images. It gets a little confused with centaurs, though.
Talk about images. I hate to cut you off, but like talk about images. That's actually what we're going to talk about for the next part. And you guys have to promise not to cancel me. And I'm saying this not just to you, Tristan and Dom, but I'm saying this to our audience members who might be watching as well. So, we'll save that part for after Tristan's comment. We'll let Tristan finish that thought.
I was just going to add that Gemini does seem capable of writing code, and it isn't immediately incorrect, which, I mean, maybe it will be upon further examination, but it does not immediately appear to be incorrect. So,
one thing before we move on. So ChatGPT is up to what, like 2021, like information wise. Do you guys know what Gemini is up to? Like, or
well, so I think for ChatGPT 3.5, it was up to 2021 data. But if you get the paid subscription version, which is ChatGPT 4, or you can use it for free on Microsoft Copilot. So if you use Copilot, then it has updated info like live. So it's no longer limited to 2021 data. But I think Gemini is also live data, so it's continuously updated.
You can ask about stocks and stuff. It's actually kind of entertaining.